Hello, my friends. I'm glad you could join me again. So last week we talked about Baroque music and the Baroque style, the Baroque time period, 1600 to 1750. Baroque music developed out of the German chorales and the tradition of having a chorale theme that is developed by the organist playing around the congregation singing the melody of the chorale. So from that was developed Takata Style. And you recall from last week, a toccata is a piece that is written down, that is composed in order to sound made up, improvised. And if you listen to our 11 o'clock service this week, I played Buxtehude's toccata in F major. So this piece sounds like it is improvised by Buxtehude, but he actually composed it and wrote it down. So improvisation became extremely important in the Baroque style. And when Bach or other students went to study, Bach studied with Buxtehude, he most likely studied improvisation. Improvisation is one way that we developed the fugue, and we talked a little about the fugue. The fugue is similar to the chorale, except the theme, the melody, is much, much shorter. Usually that theme is only 2 measures, 3 measures, 4 measures long at the most. From this small, short theme, you develop a very large piece. I'm going to play Bach's fugue in C major from the Well-Tempered Clavier, and I'm going to point out where the theme comes in. You'll hear it one time, and then you will hear it a second time, then a third and a fourth time. And each time that it's introduced, the other themes are still playing. So by the time you get to the 8th measure, you have 4 voices that are playing the same theme in a different place. So here is the theme. Here is the second voice. This is the third voice. Fourth voice. And so on. So from that point, the entire piece develops with 4 voices singing independent from each other. So you understand why the organ was so important in playing the fugue, because when you have 4 voices being played with 2 hands, you run out of hands. The feet get to play one of the voices in the organ world, so it makes it a little bit easier. So the Well-Tempered Clavier. Here I mentioned that Johann Sebastian Bach wrote the Well-Tempered Clavier. Many of us have played out of this folder. It's a collection of pieces that he wrote, Prelude and Fugue, in each major and minor key. And not only does it get you familiar with all of the keys, which is one reason that teachers like to use it, but it also introduces us to tempering. What is a well-tempered clavier? Well, a clavier is simply a keyboard. It's not an instrument. It's a generic word for keyboard. So you can play these pieces on the clavier on a harpsichord, a pianoforte, the modern piano, even though it wasn't invented at the time. You could play it on a clavinet, clavichord, an organ. It made no difference what keyboard you played on these, because you played them all basically with the same style. So tempering and temperament. This is an interesting thing that we don't do in music anymore. So here's the way I like to explain it. If I play this, this note, we like to hear a little bit higher because we know it's going up. So our brain automatically makes us sing that note just a little bit higher. When you hear this chord, this note, when we sing, most of the time we will sing this note flat. And every choir director in the world will tell you the tenor note is usually flat. It's usually a little higher than we think it is. So what happens when you tune a keyboard to the actual wavelength, physics, remember our physics lessons? When you actually tune a keyboard so that everything is equal spaced, our ears don't like it as much. Our ears want to hear that third, we want to hear that note a little bit higher. But when everything is equal, we don't hear that. So during the Baroque period, they would actually tune this note just a little bit higher. The interesting part is when you would then play in this key, this is the same note, but now it's out of tune because it was tuned to another key. So they would tune according to the key of C, and then every other key that they had would be slightly out of tune in certain ways. So the key of D flat was a big, robust key. So when you played in C sharp or D flat, it was a big piece. When you played in A major, it was very light and it was very delicate. E flat was considered a brooding key because of the way that the instrument was tuned. So it's a very odd thing for us to think that at the time keyboards were not tuned in perfect pitch. They were tuned relative to the C major chord. So this piece is in C major, which puts it in normal temperament. So Prelude in C by Js Bach. You will also notice that when I play this, I don't use the pedal because the pedal didn't exist at the time. So this is probably a little bit closer to how Bach intended this piece to sound. Prelude in C major. Peace to you.